and move my head out of the way. There it is. Good to see you guys. Yeah, Darlene McClure. I'm gonna start with you, Darlene. No, I did not have busted pipes again, but the technology is running back at me at the current moment. Good to see you guys. I'm glad I could clear that up, everyone. Yes, I'm 5 minutes behind. I can tell you why. I got a couple of small things to point out here. Did you guys? I remember like maybe a month or two ago, I gave you guys some less known facts about dogs. You know what? I think at that time it was something like they vomit only at between the hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. And then when you hear it, it's louder than an alarm clock, that annoying beeping sound from an alarm clock. It's really bad. That was last time. Last night and into this morning, I'm sorry, it wasn't last night. It was all this morning. And when I say this morning, I mean like after midnight, all the way up until about 5 a.m. Did you guys know that, also at the same time, that's when dogs have diarrhea and they shit everywhere? And then also after that is then when they vomit also everywhere. Only in those hours. It's really weird. It's like their early morning or something. I don't know, they're like vampire dogs or something. And the last point that I learned about dogs that I guess everyone already knew, is that if they have anything, literally eat anything that's not the normal standard BS food that they always eat, that's when the vomiting and also all of that diarrhea comes from. It's really wild. And you know what that odd food is? It's not like it's McDonald's or something. It's like kibble made for dogs, and a very small amount of it that wasn't that particular dog's kibble, but it was the other ones. And then that one got to eating like a couple pieces, and for 3 days this dog has been shitting and vomiting everywhere. So in case anyone was wondering, no frozen pipes for me today. Just diarrhea and vomit everywhere. And it led into the daylight hours too, which is why I'm 5 minutes late. Not sure if you guys really wanted the explanation as to why I'm 5 minutes behind, but that's really the explanation as to why I'm 5 minutes behind. Um, so that's that. I do have one other thing though. Nothing about all that nasty stuff with dogs. I will say one last thing. It did come to mind. It's This is a back in my day type of thought. I do remember that we had some dogs when I was a kid, and I remember there was no level of care given to these level of dogs with their food choices. I mean, it was whatever we could afford and feed to these dogs, and man, they thrived. It's weird how dogs now, you give them this like science scheduled diet of food, research, talk about what kind of things they're good at eating and not eating, get the right one. And then if they have a piece of anything else, it's destructive. What is it about dogs that are being made in 2026 that they can't handle any variety of food? It's weird. It's like it keeps happening. I don't know. Maybe I should do like a vet show or something so I can get some answers to these questions, because I still don't have the answers to any of these questions. Why dogs can't eat things anymore without, completely their stomach jumping out from their belly and into their throat. It's weird. But more related news to what's going on with the stream, though. Glad you guys are here. I'm Jr. Let's like that stream. Let's go ahead and share it. And let's also subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Apologies for all these programming notes, but I have something very important. I started looking up a few other things because I think, as you guys can see, I use a streaming platform as I jump on here and do this on the live stream every day on YouTube. But I'm thinking, how many of you guys would be watching maybe if I extend that also to Twitch? Potentially even Instagram. I'm looking into how to potentially do that, just to have more places where it could go live. Maybe it's not as convenient for you guys to jump on YouTube. Maybe you just don't like the platform. Maybe you're always on Twitch. Maybe you're always on Instagram. I'm just wondering if it's something worthwhile, because I was trying to test that yesterday, to spread these to other platforms. So if you guys want to see live watch party every day on other platforms, let me know if you guys are big on Twitch, big on Instagrams. I'm not sure where else we may be able to do it. Maybe even I do also have a page over on, what's the orange one? I'm forgetting all of these platforms. Um, I'm gonna think of it soon and then we'll ask more. But to spread it out further, I'm curious if you guys would see it over there, or if that's not worth my time, because it's more management of more things. Trust. Okay, all that out of the way. Let's go ahead and get started with what it is that's been running through my brain. That's been frustrating me. That's been a little bit disturbing, but also absolutely unsurprising in this United States of America. Ilhan Omar, representative from Minnesota, that same state that Donald Trump and his Gestapo will continue to occupy. She was having a town hall last night. She was talking to constituents, specifically in this case, about the problem in Minnesota and the people that are running that show in Minnesota. Did you guys see what happened?
Abolishment of the agency. ICE cannot be reformed. It cannot be rehabilitated. We must abolish ICE for good. And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment. I don't know.
Oh my God, he sprayed something on her.
I need a napkin to know nothing. No, we will continue.
No. You need to go get checked. No,
we will continue. These fucking assholes are not going to get away with it.
You need to go get checked. No, I don't know what. No. That's whatever it is smells so bad. She needs to go get checked. I don't know
that's what they want. Please don't let them.
It's not about him, Ilhan. It's not about him. It's about your safety. No, he sprayed something on you. You need to go get checked. Yeah, and it smells terrible.
Representative Ilhan Omar, target of MAGA, specifically the president, Donald Trump's ire, was assaulted, attacked last night at a town hall when she was speaking to constituents about the things that her constituents want to speak to them about. The man ran up on her, sprayed some substance from it. I think people described it as a syringe, and got tackled immediately. But even before he got tackled, maybe you guys noticed, the representative then decided to launch her own offensive against the guy that was looking to intimidate and potentially harm her. We still don't know what that substance was. At least I don't. I'm sure maybe someone else has identified it by now. I hadn't heard about it yet. That was the first part. And as you saw, she was talking about how she wanted to continue on despite the assault, despite what they didn't even know what the substance was because of the message that she was giving. So she got her way.
We're going to keep talking. Just give me 10 minutes. Just give me 10 minutes. I beg you. Please don't let them have the show. Please don't let them have the show. Please don't let them have the show. Here is the reality that people like this ugly man don't understand. We are Minnesota strong, and we will stay resilient in the face of whatever they might throw at us. Everybody settle down. I'm going to finish my remarks. It is important for me to continue to lead my Democratic colleagues in demanding her resignation.
And the message continued. It says a lot. I think it's worth it to notice the response that Ilhan Omar had to this constant attacks on her, which culminated into an actual one that's from all the threats that she gets on a daily basis, but then went back to telling her constituents what is they need to do to rid their cities and their state of this scourge that is in representation of that guy who ran up and tried to harm her. I just want to point out where we think the people that we should be afraid of, how weak, how cowardly, and how violent they actually are. So the next time they start talking about all these thugs and these savages and these third world countries that they like to talk about, what you keep seeing is Donald Trump and his people continuing with their third world actions, which continues to be some kind of a, this slight at other countries, which in many cases, the reasons why they're in the positions that they are in economically, financially, trade-wise, leadership, dictatorial leaders, and things like that is because of the influence that colonizing countries have had on them. So even the fact that we're demeaning these countries with these terms, the purpose, the reason behind it is because of countries like this. But there's still that Ilhan Omar had to say. Sarah Seidner from CNN got a chance to catch up with her right after she did actually finish her remarks and then was leaving.
Representative Omar, are you okay?
I'm gonna go figure if I am, but I feel okay. I feel that it is important for people, whether they're in elected office or not, to allow these people to intimidate us, to make us not fight for our constituents and for the country we love. And as I said, I've survived war, and I'm definitely going to survive intimidation and whatever these people think they can throw at me, because I'm built that way.
Thank you.
Despite how many times Donald Trump talks about how she comes from this shithole country and that it isn't really a country, and that she's a pirate and that she's a fake congresswoman. I'm not sure what that means. No matter how many times he talks about it, his obsession with her is because she's that strong, she's that powerful, and she's that resolve. She has that resilience in the face of all these things that they continue to try to do. I'm built that way. She survived war. Now, many times, anytime you see refugees come from war-torn countries, Donald Trump likes to demean them and say that they're coming from asylums and they're coming to rape your children and pump drugs into their veins. But in reality, what these folks who have gotten away from war-torn countries are strong folks who have survived it, seen some of the worst, and then come here and they think that these sorry sons of bitches are people that can intimidate them. And she keeps showing them that they can't, which is why he continues to get so upset. He hates her because she's not afraid of his cowardly ass, the way the entire Republican Party for some reason is. This is the thing she posted herself afterwards. She says, I'm okay. I'm a survivor, so this small agitator isn't going to intimidate me from doing my work. I don't let bullies win. Grateful to my incredible constituents who rallied behind me. Minnesota strong. Again, I'm not sure if we got an idea of what the substance was. Also, when I was listening to them talk about it, also on Caitlin Collins' show, I think they mentioned something like they smelled a vinegar type of odor. I don't know how many things that could encompass, or if she's, I don't know, she's okay now. We'll see. She does say that she is. I just want to, we saw the strength and resilience of Ilhan Omar. Here's the face of cowardice, MAGA, and Donald Trump foot soldiers. This is the guy that tried to, or did attack Ilhan Omar. I'm not sure how far he felt he was going to get with that. But this is the face of MAGA. This is what MAGA represents. This is what Donald Trump is happy to see happen. Every time it happens, he's like cheering it on. It's pretty obvious. As a matter of fact, this is what Donald Trump was saying. I mean, Adam Mockler posted this. He said, this is what Trump was saying a few hours before that event happened at that town hall, where one of Donald Trump's, card-carrying foot soldiers then tried to attack her. Do you think it's ironic, or do you think it's somehow is connected that this was his message to his people?
Come in. They have to show that they can love our country. They have to be proud. Not like Ilhan Omar. Did you see that wise guy? She's always talking about the Constitution, provides me with the following. The Constitution, she comes from a country that's a disaster. So probably it's considered, I think it's not even a country, okay? It barely has a government. I don't think it does. They go to one thing, pirates. But they don't do that anymore. You know why? Because they get the same treatment from us as the drug dealers get. Boom, boom, boom. I don't care what ship they're attacking. When they attack, when we say them going in, ping, that's the end of the come in. They have to show that.
I feel like we've heard those few lines before. It's like he always says the same thing over and over again. It's almost like he's pushing propaganda in order to, create this atmosphere where people feel emboldened, kind of similar to January 6th, emboldened to then go attack his political enemies, anybody that he's said is his political enemy, simply because they're pushing back on his fascism. That's how, that's how fascists work. He says it so many times, I could have recited it with him. He always says it. This is from a couple weeks ago.
We intend to imprison any fraudster, politician, or public official involved in these sick plots to loot and pillage our country. Think of that Ilhan Omar. She lives in Somalia. They don't have a government. They don't have a military. They don't have police. They don't have anything. All they have is murder and robbing ships, bringing in ships, pirates. That's stopped. Same missile, ping. That's the end of them. It's amazing how that can stop corruption. Those missiles, they never miss, The same one, exactly the same one. But think of it. She comes from a country with nothing, and she comes here and she tells us about our Constitution. I have a constitutional right to rip off the country. I guess she's a total scam artist. Anybody knows it. How do you let her get away with it? AOC +3. She was one of the three. They're all scammers. They're so bad for our country. They're so bad for our country.
So do you think when he says things like she can't get away with it, you can't let her get away with it, they're scamming our country, they're so bad for our country, do you think he understands that he's emboldening his people who he's seen countless times over do exactly what he wanted them to do? Or do you think that you need to hear him literally go on an international trip to Davos, Switzerland, to literally say that same thing?
The situation in Minnesota reminds us that the West cannot mass import foreign cultures which have failed to ever build a successful society of their own. I mean, we're taking people from Somalia, and Somalia is a failed, it's not a nation, got no government, got no police, got no military, got no nothing. And then we have this fake congressperson who they just reported is worth $30 million. You believe this? Ilhan Omar, talking about the Constitution provides me. She comes from a country that's not a country, and she's telling us how to run America. Not going to get away with it much longer, let me tell you.
It's repetitive. Not going to let her get away with it much longer. Let me tell you. What do you think that says to the deranged people that he's collected around him that think I need to show my worth to Donald Trump so he knows that I'm a loyal foot soldier? When he says we're not going to let her get away with it much longer. She's a fake congresswoman. She came here illegally. We got to get her out of here. They recently chanted, send her back constantly. This is the drumbeat of murderous dictators in power that want to eliminate their political enemies. We keep seeing and hearing about it when it comes to Vladimir Putin, other dictators of other countries, and we go, man, look at the situation in those countries when you've got a guy who's literally doing it right in front of us, and then we see how that culminates then into that same attack on the folks that he specifically points out. So do you think it's a mistake that he keeps going pew when he talks about how he's going to murder more people? Specifically, these folks from one particular country that he likes to say is somehow the evil people when he keeps killing folks and keeps sending his foot soldiers to do the same. So you may ask yourself, man, this must have really been the turning point for this guy. Rachel Scott of ABC News posted this. I just spoke to President Trump, asked him if he had seen the video of Representative Omar being attacked and sprayed by a substance. This is what Donald Trump said. No, I don't think about her. I think she's a fraud. I really don't think about that. She probably had herself sprayed, knowing her. And then Rachel Scott asked again if he had seen the video. He says, no, I haven't seen it. No. I hope I don't have to bother. Maybe it's been this whole past week of him having to bother to see the video of the murder of people in the middle of the streets in Minneapolis, and the reasons why he's now not wanting to see the next video of what he jumped the gun to then say was fake, fraudulent. She must have had someone spray her as well. You know why? Because the guy is a coward, because the guy is happy to see it. It's the reasons why he stood there for however many countless hours and watched his January 6th insurrectionists run up on the Capitol and did nothing about it, because that's what he wanted. So as this happens, if he watches the video, he's going to smile, he's going to rub his hands, and he's going to have some evil laugh, because that's who he is. This is what he wants. The only disappointment he's got is that the guy didn't harm her further and even potentially kill her. That's what Donald Trump wants. But we don't need to overreact about that. She's just black. She's just Somalian American. She just comes from another country beforehand. That's all. This is where they crossed the line when it came to who they felt they could just murder in the streets and then get away with it, which he's back on track with that because it's black and brown folks. And then when it comes to Renee Good and Alex Preddy, they're hitting brick walls all of a sudden. So since we're talking about murderous rhetoric, political murderous rhetoric, did you see this from Megyn Kelly? She was upset. I'm not sure if this must have been, it was at later on at night from Tuesday. Maybe she heard about what happened with Ilhan Omar. I'm not sure exactly where she was, but Megyn Kelly posted this because she's talking about Kara Swisher, who's a political commentator and knows a lot of what she's talking about, an analyst. She says, "This is sick," all capitals on the sick. She's trying to get Stephen Miller killed. Why else would you say he's Himmler? Deranged and so far beyond the pale. We can't become immune to it. Megyn Kelly is upset about someone she claims Kara Swisher will get Stephen Miller killed. I wonder what kind of rhetoric she assumes Kara Swisher, which I'm sure tons of people have never heard of, versus the president of the United States, who continues this drumbeat of wanting to murder his political enemies. I wonder if Megyn Kelly has had any posts about Donald Trump trying to get Ilhan Omar killed. That is up to the point when someone attacked her. So here's what Kara Swisher said that has Megyn Kelly so upset and thinking that Stephen Miller is going to get killed.
And I would last like to call out Stephen Miller, who is in the center of this. We always focus on Trump, as we often focus on the top people, but Stephen Miller, like a man named Ben Detson, he was the one who created the internment camps for Japanese. Heinrich Himmler in the Nazi regime. This is what he is, and he of course Trump gets most of the blame, being at the top. But people like Stephen Miller will go down in history as evil, had blood on his hands, and should be jailed at the very end of this. And you're absolutely right. And I would
Which part of that do you think Megyn Kelly thinks is some kind of catalyst to get Stephen Miller killed? Comparing him to Heinrich Himmler? Maybe comparing him to historical figures who've literally done the exact same thing that this fascist Nazi American regime is doing right now. Like it's direct. We can see all of it. So at some point, Megyn Kelly thinks that we have to get off of this narrative of comparing current political figures to previous current political figures who are doing the exact same thing. It's odd. Maybe she should start with J.D. Vance, who called Donald Trump America's Hitler. Maybe she should start there, or maybe she should shut up and stop trying to act like she's not carrying water for continuing on this fascist administration. Speaking of going down in history, she's going to go down in history to be one of these folks who's part of this state media that continues to push their lies, push their fascism, and apparently all about their white supremacy. You can't get it off of you. I guess you think it's going to win. It's the only reason to do it, because you think this is going to somehow reward you later. It's also why, oddly enough, this wasn't something that someone who hates the Megyn Kelly show posted. Her show herself posted this. I mean, since we're talking about people being murdered and how we need to be concerned with how they die and whether or not rhetoric pushed it in that direction, or maybe fascist thugs in the streets pushing that, this is what she had to say about Alex Pretty's murder.
I know I'm supposed to feel sorry for Alex Pretty, but I don't. I don't. Do you know why I wasn't shot by Border Patrol this weekend? Because I kept my ass inside and out of their operations. It's very simple. If I felt strongly enough about something the government was doing that I would go out and protest, I would do it peacefully on the sidewalk without interfering, via a whistle, via shouting, via my body, via any other way. I would make my objections known by standing there without interfering, because interfering is where you go south. And laying hands on a police officer trying to, or Border Patrol officer or ICE officer trying to conduct a law enforcement operation is a felony. And now you are going to get arrested. And if you do anything that resembles resisting, you're in serious trouble. I know I'm supposed
to. The reason she thinks she's supposed to feel sorry for Alex Pretty, and therefore she doesn't, is because she's trying to promote herself as being, one of the worst people in the country, because that's how you get closer to actually the worst person in the country. Is you say things like that and then post it literally as if this is a promotional video about where you stand. This is supposed to be something that she posts to promote her show. And it's obvious to promote some kind of hate watching, because that's what every comment was talking about, how much they hate her. But this is the other thing, in case you think, Megyn Kelly just doesn't like anybody who shows up at protests with guns. I'm not sure if you guys remember her talking about Kyle Rittenhouse and how he oddly showed up at a protest, with a gun. And instead of what Alex Pretty did, got murdered, he murdered. It's weird. It's like the other way around.
Reese Witherspoon, after Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted, guarantee you this woman did not watch 1 minute of that trial. No one should be able to purchase a semi-automatic weapon, cross state lines, and kill 2 people, wound another, and go free. In what world is this safe for any of us? Reese Witherspoon, with undoubtedly her security guards in her mansions and her gates, yet another elite, rich woman who has no clue why someone might actually buy a semi-automatic weapon and feel the need to protect others.
You think that makes any sense? She's condoning Kyle Rittenhouse crossing state lines with his rifles and going and killing people, but because Reese Witherspoon is rich. Do you guys remember the size of the hundreds of millions of dollars of a settlement or the rest of her contract that she got after she was fired from NBC for being a racist on air too? Do you guys remember that? It's almost like Megyn Kelly is also rich, probably has private security, and then goes around and talks as if she's some kind of connection to the common man. It's weird how it works. The only common man that Megyn Kelly apparently relates to is the common man that is a MAGA common man, and they do weird things like they traffic young girls and children, and Megyn Kelly is always there to cape for them.
As for Epstein, I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls. And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts. That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. And that is what I believed, and that was what I reliably was told for many years. I don't know what's true about him, but we have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was under 10, I was under 14 when I first came within his purview. Look, you can say that's a distinction without a difference.
No, it's not.
I think there is a difference. There's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old. It's just whatever.
That's who Megyn Kelly protects. That's who Megyn Kelly relates to. That's the audience that Megyn Kelly's trying to cultivate by promoting things that she promotes from her channel. But she's concerned about Stephen Miller potentially being killed because someone compared him to Nazis. I just want to document this stuff. It doesn't mean you have to have any big time arguments and convincing arguments that you're supposed to be giving to folks before they figure out what reality is. They know what reality is. Megyn Kelly knows everything that she's doing. She knows what she's talking about. She knows what her objective is. Her objective is to be, at the feet of the throne of Donald Trump and to make sure that she gets the crustiest of his big toes, to make sure that she sticks in her mouth and sucks every time that she gets the opportunity for. Because apparently they like bowing down to dictators. That's what this whole party is about. And if you don't, you get the hell out. You get the hell out. Because remember, she was in opposition with Donald Trump before he started talking about her bleeding from anywhere and everywhere. Yeah, I think everyone remembers that part. She's sat herself in line now. And she's protecting Stephen Miller. So let's talk about all this. Stephen Miller's and the Kristi Noems and their attacks on Minnesota. Let's shift gears a little bit here, because yesterday I was talking about the pressure that's coming down on these folks after they murdered 2 American citizens in the streets, and then there was cameras there to document it, even though they kept lying about what it was that happened. A few of these Republicans are getting upset. They're tired of this. One of them is Tom Tillis. Tom Tillis, he's a long-standing Republican. He's got a little bit of clout and a name behind him. He's pissed.
Senator, you have confidence in Secretary Noem? None at all. No, she's. I've tried to maintain confidence, but look, and we'll be sharing this information. We've done a Trump 1, Trump 2 comparison of disaster relief. There's no comparison whatsoever. Trump 1 was right on with disaster recovery. You think about Matthew and Florence, and this one, she's not even handling the other part of her job. I mean, at one point she thought FEMA should be eliminated. To give you an idea of how incompetent I think she is, she actually thought FEMA should be eliminated. And when she had a FEMA director said he didn't think that was a good idea, she fired him within 24 hours. Now she understands that that is an important part of her job. These are like amateurish assistant manager sort of thought processes going into somebody who's a secretary in a cabinet level position. It's unacceptable.
Tom Tillis is not very happy with Kristi Noem. She's amateurish. Like these weird assistant positions type of decisions that she's making are flying off the rails. Hey, did you know that the retiring Tom Tillis now has a couple of guts that he's collected to talk trash about the folks that he's always enabled? Did you know that he's retiring? Did you also know the rest of the people who've said anything against this administration are retiring? Did you know that part? Because what he was complaining about was that he needs to separate somehow Kristi Noem from Donald Trump so he can be upset at her. He's upset at Kristi Noem and not Donald Trump, specifically in that little bit there about her thoughts about trying to eliminate FEMA. He's upset that Kristi Noem, don't forget this part, he's upset that Kristi Noem wants to eliminate FEMA, and then they were putting all that into place. There's this really weird thing you might not have heard about. This person you're about to see here, they're not Kristi Noem.
FEMA just hasn't done the job. And we're looking at the whole concept of FEMA. We're going to be doing something on FEMA that I think most people agree. I'd like to see the states take care of disasters. Let the state take care of the tornadoes and the hurricanes and all of the other things that happen.
We're going to eliminate FEMA.
It's almost like Kristi Noem is the mouthpiece for Donald Trump. Everything he wants, Kristi Noem does. That's her job. Her job is not to run the Department of Homeland Security. Her job is to do what Donald Trump and also Heinrich Himmler, Stephen Miller told her to do, and she parrots it all the time. By the way, that's not the only time. It's not the only time.
We want to wean off of FEMA, and we want to bring it down to the state level. A little bit like education, we're moving it back to the states. So the governors can handle it. That's why they're governors now. If they can't handle it, they shouldn't be governor. But these governors can handle it, and they'll work in conjunction with other governors. They'll give each other a hand. But the FEMA thing has not been a very successful experiment. Very, very expensive, and it doesn't get the job done. You saw what happened in North Carolina under the past administration. It has not worked out well. It's extremely expensive. And again, when you have a tornado or a hurricane or you have a problem of any kind, in a state, that's what you have governors for. They're supposed to fix those problems.
Have you heard Tom Tillis talking about how he's so pissed at Donald Trump for wanting to eliminate FEMA, and that he made sure that his Department of Homeland Security secretary, did you hear about how he's upset at both Kristi Noem and Donald Trump? Or do you see him separating Kristi Noem from Donald Trump? Because even though he's retiring and he's yelling in interviews now, did you know that he still has nothing to say about Donald Trump, despite the fact that he's upset about FEMA, which Donald Trump had a lot to say about?
How soon do you want to see FEMA eliminated? And what's your message to the governors about how much more of an expense it's going to fall to states?
Yeah, well, it's not going to be so much to states. We're going to give out less money. We're going to give it out directly. It'll be from the president's office. We'll have somebody here. We think after this, Christy, I'd say after the hurricane season, we'll
Yes, sir.
start
You
phasing
set
it
up
out.
a FEMA council over the next couple of months. We'll be working on reforms and what FEMA will look like in the future as a different agency, as under the Department of Homeland Security to the president's vision. And it will empower governors to go out and respond to emergency situations. And that what the president does best is to make sure that the taxpayers are only fulfilling the need to which is appropriate, and that people are responsible to respond to their own people closest to home.
Crazy. It's crazy how that works. He says something, tells her to repeat what he wants her to say, and then she parrots it and repeats it. Yet Tom Tillis, who's retiring and now is starting to talk a tough game, he's mad at Kristi Noem only. And Kristi Noem apparently some rogue head of this agency, and Donald Trump has no idea what it is that she's doing, despite the fact that I'm sure Tom Tillis, if my ass sitting here can find all these moments when Donald Trump was bashing and going after FEMA to eliminate it, it's weird that I can find it and he can't. It's like he has no idea what's going on in his world, even though he has all this that he wants to say about it. It's like crazy how that keeps working. But he was standing outside of that car and he was mad at Kristi Noem. He wasn't even done. I just wanted to give you guys that little side about FEMA. He had more to say about everything else that she's screwing up.
Does she need to step down?
Stephen
Does she
Miller?
need to?
Stephen Miller is in the same boat. This guy, after doing the stupid comments he made about Greenland getting the president in a difficult circumstance, is one of the people that came out publicly and said that this guy was a terrorist before he had even talked with anybody on the ground. And that's clearly not the case now. So, I mean, it's just, I mean, Stephen Miller never fails to live up to my expectations of incompetence.
Why do you think he should resign?
Fired. I'm going to leave that up to the president. I can tell you, if I were president, neither one of them would be in Washington right now.
But do you think Noam should step down?
I think Noam needs to decide what. I think if Noam looks at her body of work, I could not be. If I were in her position, I can't think of any point of pride over the last year. She's got to make her own decision, or the president does. But she has taken this administration into the ground on an issue that we should own. We should own the issue of border security and immigration. But they have destroyed that for Republicans. Something that got the president elected, they have destroyed it through their incompetence.
There it is again. He has tough words for Stephen Miller, too. I wonder if Megyn Kelly is going to post about how Tom Tillis is trying to get Stephen Miller killed by criticizing him over how they've pushed all of this fascism and their soldiers into the streets to harass American citizens and murder a few of them. I wonder if Megyn Kelly is going to be mad about that yet, because Tom Tillis criticized Stephen Miller. That's murder language, right? Isn't that how it works? Anytime you don't want to talk about what it is we're seeing in front of our faces, you start acting like someone's trying to kill you, even though you're dispatching people to do exactly that. But did you notice the back end there? They're destroying Donald Trump's legacy on deportations, immigration, and the border. They're destroying Donald Trump's legacy on it somehow. It's not Donald Trump. It's never him. It's the people that are surrounding him. Yet he's too stupid to figure out that they're just giving him bad advice all the time, even though he says it and then they say it right afterwards. It's almost like Tom Tillis is lying and he's still afraid of Donald Trump. He went and took his show on the road, from the road to inside, and he still got fierce and tough words for the people that he's not afraid of.
I think that what she's done in Minnesota should be disqualifying. She should be out of the job. And I mean, really, it's just amateurish. It's terrible. It's making the president look bad on policies that he won on. He won on a strong message about immigration. And now nobody's talking about that. They're not talking about securing the border. They're talking about the incompetence of the leader of Homeland Security and the other people. Bavino, whatever his name is, he needs to go down to California, get his retirement papers, and go. These people are amateurs. They got to de-escalate there and treat these communities with some respect. I think.
And now Greg Bavino is part of the trio that Tom Tillis has a little bit of courage to then talk about, and how they keep killing people and attacking communities in Minnesota. Not Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with him. I'm gonna like tie this whole thing together. Even in his anger and aggression towards Stephen Miller when it came to Greenland, we saw that a couple weeks ago. He had a long speech on the Senate floor about how much he despises Stephen Miller and he has to get back in his lane when it comes to Greenland. When he was asked about that on CNBC, this is the non-surprising part about this whole thing. He's upset at Stephen Miller. But this is what his thoughts are on what Trump should do about, or should happen to Trump based off of Stephen Miller and his lines about Greenland.
There are some other Republican senators who have raised the issue as well. I believe Senator McConnell has said that if the president goes ahead with this moves on Greenland, if something were to happen there, that this would be something that other Republican senators would move to impeach him on. Are you in that camp?
Well, I'm not going to go to impeachment, because I would go to the process of implementing, well, let's say it was a kinetic action or some sort of increase in military presence, that I'd immediately go for a war powers resolution. I think that we could easily get veto-proof majorities. That's why I'm trying to advise the president. We need to project power from Greenland. We can do that.
He pleads with the president, hates all of this in his agenda, but the last thing he would ever want to do is vote to impeach. That will require, some guts. That will require you to have principles. That will require you to take action on the things that you keep saying that you're totally against. Tom Tillis is trying to have a clean exit where he doesn't have anyone bashing him, and where the Republican MAGA party isn't calling him a bunch of names and potentially wanting to kill him, maybe hang him like they wanted to hang Mike Pence, because on Mike Pence's way out, despite all of his fawning and his gazing at Donald Trump during that first term, they still turned on his ass because Donald Trump turned on his ass. Tom Tillis is afraid of that happening to him. So Tom Tillis dodges Donald Trump. No one wants to follow cowards. But they're going to say Ilhan Omar, who was just attacked by someone, who then lunged back at her attacker and then continued on with her remarks before then saying, I'm built for this. They want to call her weak and they want to call her a fraud. But Tom Tillis is supposed to be some kind of upstanding, principled politician, American, that never says the things that actually help his constituents, that only help his ass. It's about time we start recognizing this stuff every once in a while. It's crazy. Profiles in courage. I tell you what. So if you guys just showed up, yeah, I'm keeping it all contained. I feel like I'm not doing much like barking and yelling today, because this stuff is just so obvious. I don't feel like I need to convince anyone of what we're looking at in front of our faces. All we have to do is let them keep doing it, which I'm trying to actually hope that we stop them from continuing to do. But things just keep getting worse no matter how much we see it. So we're talking about this whole blame that's going around, because now the shit is hitting the fan when it comes to their murdering people in the streets. So CNN had some details about what it is that now Stephen Miller, now he's getting some pressure from people like Tom Tillis and some Democrats and maybe a few Republicans, not really sure, because Tom Tillis said there was other Republicans that are upset with him. Now CNN has details about how they're trying to figure out how they're going to worm their way out of this and who just might be that fall guy.
But there's more here. We had learned that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem had been in constant touch with the White House leading up to her press conference, leading up to the first tweet that DHS put out about the shooting of Alex Preddy. She had been talking to Miller. She had been talking to a number of various officials. She had briefed them on how she was going to comport herself when she got up there. Here's what Miller said about that. Said, the initial statement from DHS was based on reports from CBP on the ground. The reason why that is notable is that he is not disputing that he gave talking points to Noem, that the White House was behind that, but instead they are saying that they got that information, that he got his information from reports on the ground from CBP officials, now saying they're evaluating if there was wrongdoing by those agents.
Did you hear? Did you hear? Stephen Miller is feeling a little bit of pressure here. He even backpedaled slightly on what he was saying when it came to all these assassins in the streets that are coming after Border Patrol and ICE agents. This is the statement that that CNN reporter was talking about, that Stephen Miller is now trying to put out there. Maybe he's worried, like Megyn Kelly is worried about his life being on the line. In a statement to CNN, Miller said that the White House had provided clear guidance to DHS that the extra personnel that had been sent to Minnesota for force protection should be used for conducting fugitive operations to create a physical barrier between the arrest teams and the disruptors. That was the plan. He continued, we're evaluating why the CBP team may not have been following that protocol. It's not his fault. It's not Donald Trump's fault. It's not Kristi Noem's fault. They gave complete and direct orders for those folks that they sent in angrily, and which the same guy said that they should, have this immunity around. They should go down there and just do something different. And now that people are getting murdered, Stephen Miller wants nothing to do with any responsibilities. It's like they're cowards or something. And then all these foot soldiers that they have in place to carry out all of their Nazi tendencies, they're going right under buses immediately and often. Here's Donald Trump trying to talk about it too. I wonder who he's going to blame this on.
A little crime.
But it's gone very differently in Minneapolis.
Well, it has. It's the only place.
And now the message is out that Tom Homan is in.
Yeah.
Commander Bovino is supposedly leaving Minneapolis along with some CBP agents. Is this a pullback?
I don't think it's a pullback. It's a little bit of a change. Everybody in this room that has a business, you make little changes. Bovino is very good, but he's a pretty out there kind of a guy. And in some cases, that's good. Maybe it wasn't good here. But you have to understand, when I watch some of the people that I've been watching over the last few weeks, these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid agitators. These people aren't normal, like, that, they're incensed about anything. How do you get incensed when you go into a state and you're taking criminals out? You're taking monsters out murder, a little crime.
But it's gone very differently.
In case you missed it in the rest of his BS at the back in there, Greg Bovino is the one that's under the bus. He's kind of an out there kind of guy. Maybe not the right one for this situation. I wonder who could have done that. I wonder who was in charge of making sure that Greg Bovino, despite him getting kicked out of Chicago and breaking laws there, lobbing gas canisters at protesters and arresting people, snatched them out of Walgreens stores, at gas stations, and walks around and sits his face in front of cameras and smiles about it. I wonder, doing all that, how Donald Trump missed that they were all supporting this and they kept talking about it. It's weird. So someone asked him, so was that the reasons why you decided to shake this whole thing up? Because Greg Bovino, he keeps getting run over by those bus tires.
Mr. President, why did you decide to shake up your leadership team in Minnesota and send Tom?
I do that all the time. I shake up teams. Everybody here, these are a lot of owners of farms and places, and you shake up your team. If they can't do the crops fast enough, they got, look, we have.
Mr. President.
This guy has no idea if farmers in Iowa, where he was standing there in that restaurant, are shaking up their teams because they don't do the crops right or grow the crops fast enough. What the fuck is he talking about? He doesn't know. He just talks, and he thinks turning to people who are sycophants are gonna, like, somehow help carry his case of nonsense. But he just shakes up teams. We just shake him up a little bit. There's been no pressure whatsoever. I'm not sure what you guys are talking about, except this one problem. You got a room full of murderous thieves, con men, fake people with zero principles. So now that blame is starting to come around, fingers are starting to get pointed. And now that they're being pointed squarely at Greg Bovino, Kristi Noem, and a little bit of Stephen Miller, now they have to start defending themselves, and there's going to be more fingers getting pointed. This is what Kristi Noem said. Everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen. That's what she told someone after she had a meeting with these folks, because she's a little bit upset about how this keeps happening to her. Everything I've done is at the direction of the president and Stephen. Maybe she should tell Tom Tillis that, because Tom Tillis keeps thinking that she has nothing to do and no connection to Donald Trump or Stephen Miller. It's just all her. She's the one that's doing this stuff. Here's more details of how they got to the point where they're calling Alex Preddy an assassin. This is the clown show that we've got. The officers directly involved in the shooting all shut up and got lawyers real quick. So there wasn't a lot of information. That's what a source also told Axios here. The CBP officers on the ground furnished a report that the White House officials told Axios left officials with the belief that Preddy had brandished a gun. So your officers on the ground told you that he was waving a gun at them. Miller, quote, heard gun and knew what the narrative would be. Preddy came to massacre cops. That's what a source briefed on the process of assembling that press statement that they put out, said how they got there. Any early comments made were based off of information sent to the White House through the CBP. That's what Miller told Axios in response to this earlier version of the story, in which others blamed him for that massacre statement. Stephen Miller's backpedaling. Stephen Miller's like, it wasn't me, bro. The officers on the ground told me that they were brandishing guns. What am I supposed to do? So immediately when I hear that and I've seen or heard nothing else, I'd go to social media, we create a statement, and we say that he was an assassin. That's how they got to that point, apparently, because these are a bunch of liars in one room pointing at each other. Here's more. Minutes after the DHS statement, Miller posted on X and called Preddy that assassin that we all saw, which a source said was also based on a preliminary report from Customs and Border Patrol, which also what Stephen Miller's been saying. Vice President Vance then reposted it on his page. So now Vance is the next one up with zero accountability, no looking into the situation, just piggybacking the propaganda. That's how propagandists and fascists work. They got to get the message out as fast as possible and as rapidly as possible and as repeatedly as possible. Because that's when this happened. Noem subsequently used that language in her news conference, as did the Border Patrol commander when overseeing operations in the Twin Cities, Greg Bovino. Bovino should be blamed for the misinformation about Preddy, not Stephen, is what a White House source said, because they were upset about how this all got out this way. During her news conference, Kristi Noem also inaccurately suggested that Preddy was brandishing his weapon, although, as we all know, those videos showed that that never effing happened. Are these supposed to be like, details that they're giving us? Are these supposed to be things that exonerate them of the responsibilities that they've got to then go call this guy an assassin after your assassins murdered him in the streets? Is this supposed to make people start believing in them? Because what this looks like is a whole bunch of incompetence and people trying to jump the gun to get to the point to absolve themselves of any responsibility, even though the same Stephen Miller went on TV and told all these guys in the streets, do whatever the hell you want and we've got your back. It's almost like they were like listening to him or something and then acted on his words when he's trying to be a tough guy. Last part from Axios. Noam on Monday night had that 2-hour meeting with the White House with Trump to discuss that matter. Quote, she's a loyal person and she wanted her voice heard. That's what another source said. She made sure to convey her loyalty. That was her first objective in talking to Donald Trump. But Stephen Miller wasn't even in that meeting. Neither was Tom Homan. Because she's had some fights with him. Homan was already on his way to Minnesota to take over this whole operation, which we're going to get to in a second. But Noam has complained to others that she feels that she's being hung out to dry over this whole episode and has made sure to emphasize that she took direction from Miller and the president. And I've heard Donald Trump is out defending Kristi Noem, saying that she's doing everything that he wants her to do. He has utmost confidence in her. So which one is it, bro? Tom Tillis has some decisions to make because he thinks it's just her. Donald Trump says it's all of us. How you gonna both kiss his ass cheek and his feet at the same time, Tom Tillis? How you gonna pull that off? You're gonna contort yourself in these weird positions to make sure that happens. But as I mentioned there, Tom Homan is already on his way to Minnesota. That was as of yesterday. They've had their meeting. He met with Tim Walz, the governor of the state, and also Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis. Here's Tim Walz, former running mate for Kamala Harris to be vice president of the United States. Here he is. He's talking about that meeting and how he feels about Tom Homan.
I concur that getting rid of little Greg is a plus, but the demand was to get ICE out and CBP out, and to replace him with Tom Homan, who has been in his own right pretty incendiary on Fox, and has his own baggage. I'm wondering, if you think that's a satisfactory change for starters, and when you meet with him, what you're going to ask him about.
Well, look, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And Tim, I think you recognize this, and I've heard you. I think you have the vibe, if you will, of this one on this. This White House makes decisions based on emotions and non-reality that we're living in. I am in a position right now where I want to be very careful to continue to stand up, and we won't give an inch, but not to poke the bear where we don't need it. My hope is with Tom Homan is different from Greg Bovino and these folks on the streets that are just amateurs, that he is a true, law enforcement professional. I certainly wouldn't agree with his ideology on things, but I think what he understands is this thing turned into a disaster for them.
I concur that getting.
Tim Walz, governor of the state that's currently under occupation from Donald Trump's army. He wants to give Tom Homan, the guy who also talked about Chicago previously, how he's going to go in despite the demands and the thoughts and the actions of the mayor of that city. He's going to give Tom Homan the benefit of the doubt because also, as Tim Walz said, he doesn't want to poke the bear. He doesn't want to poke the bear, even though the bear is currently mauling his citizens. It's weird. He sees the bear mauling a bunch of Minnesotans, and then in response to that, he says, I don't want to poke it. It just might start mauling my citizens, because Tim Walz apparently is still afraid. Like I said yesterday, maybe I'm the bad guy. Maybe I should give them a little bit more, a wiggling room to figure this whole thing out with their soft tone and their soft approach and their begging of Donald Trump to do something he has absolutely no intention of ever doing. He went on multiple shows to give some of that same talking points about how he's all about Tom effing Homan now.
Look, I don't agree with Tom Homan's philosophy on things, but I do understand that he is law enforcement and he understands right from wrong, and he knows. I mean, no matter how much they were trying to gaslight us, the layman on the street said, I don't really think it's good policing to run around and throw canisters and kick people down and things. That's probably not a good idea. Look, I don't.
You think they're figuring that out now, Tim? Do you think now they're going, I mean, maybe it wasn't a good idea. You know, maybe when we had that first thought, of occupying cities and attacking American citizens, we thought it was a good idea then. And for some reason, Tim Walz thinks that Tom Homan is going to think differently of the situation. Honestly, I don't even think that Tim Walz believes what he's saying. I think Tim Walz is trying to come forward and have this kumbaya moment and thinks that the begging and the hoping and the pleading is going to get them to leave. It's going to get them, to leave. But instead, what he's doing is he's emboldening them to have this narrative, which I've seen some of their respondents and these MAGA supporters say, yeah, look at Tim Walz folding. He's folding to it because he's got corruption and fraudulent Somalians in his city. That's what they're saying. So do you think the kumbaya moments are going to get you anywhere when previous to that, you got citizens dying in the streets? You got Minnesotans out in the streets every day in sub-zero temperatures fighting the fight that you're now not backing them up on because you're endorsing Tom Homan. Here's what his office said in a full statement. He was just talking off the cuff on those shows. This is the official, I guess. Governor Walz met with Tom Homan this morning and reiterated Minnesota's priorities. Here's their priorities: impartial investigation into the Minneapolis shootings involving federal agents, a swift, significant reduction in the number of federal forces in Minnesota, and an end to the campaign of retribution against Minnesota. The governor and Homan agreed on the need for an ongoing dialogue and will continue working towards these goals, which the president also agreed to yesterday. The governor tasked the Minnesota Department of Public Safety as the primary liaison to Homan to ensure that these goals are met. Isn't that wonderful? Tim Walz, the governor of the state that's currently under occupation, is soft peddling all of the discussions that they've had with Tom Homan, who's now in the state, and had a conversation with him, and they were all being nice and buddy-buddy to each other. That is, despite the fact that their foot soldiers are still in the streets, not being buddy-buddy with anybody, assaulting people, taking people out of their homes and their cars, while they're talking about how great and nice everything's going to be. And also, I didn't see anything in there about ICE completely leaving the city and the state. It's like they get to stay there, and now they're being endorsed by the Democrats who run the city and the state to continue to do so. Here's the mayor of Minneapolis. Today, Chief O'Hara and I met with Border Czar Homan and had a productive conversation. I reiterated that my main task is for Operation Metro Surge to end as quickly as possible. Public safety works best when it's built on community trust, not tactics that create fear or division. Pretty please. This is our request. He said, this is my request. I'm sorry, no, right? He said, my main ask. He had a main ask, when previous to that, Jacob Fry's main ask was get the fuck out of Minnesota. And now he's asking. Now he's asking. I know some of you guys are leaving, going over to the damage report. I appreciate you and I love you. I hope you stayed for the rest of that story, because that's the end of that one. I was listening last night. By the way, so let John know I got one more story coming. I was listening last night to some of the cable news shows. I'm not sure which one. It was on Sirius XM, so I couldn't see who it was. But the woman who apparently had that back view, the one that showed even more details of how they murdered Alex Preddy in the streets, apparently she was on one of these shows, and she spoke about how afraid she is that they're now going to be coming after her, but she also feels that she needs to be emboldened to then tell her story, reveal who she is. And also, oddly, as Tim Walz and Jacob Fry are endorsing Tom Homan's presence in the state, what she pointed out was this investigation that should probably include what she saw and what she recorded hasn't reached out to her at all. But we're going to continue to give credibility to the folks who still aren't doing the job, who are still looking to find some roundabout way to do one thing. We saw it all yesterday on Fox News, how they're trying to clean up Donald Trump's image and then still not look weak, which Brian Kilmeade said. Let's not look too weak. We can't have this be a template for other cities to get us the hell out of their cities. So the leaders of these cities and these states are the ones that are now helping them build back their credibility, while at the same time, the people that they represent are on the line and fighting every day in those streets. They're organizing. They're not even being violent yet. But they'll call Tim Walz a leader of terror. Okay, I got one more. Like I said, I'm gonna go over by a few minutes. I hope you guys can hang around. If not, these stories will be up a little bit later on the page, as usual. So come back, find those. I got to go to this because all gun-loving Americans really, they should really pay attention to what their president, the protector of the Second Amendment, has to say about protecting the Second Amendment.
Do you think he was acting as an assassin in Minneapolis?
Who is that?
Mr. Petty, your deputy chief of staff
No,
said
not
that.
as an no. With that being said, you can't have guns. You can't walk in with guns. You just can't. And you can't, listen, you can't walk in with guns. You can't do that. But it's just a very unfortunate incident.
There's Donald Trump. He's giving his thoughts on the Second Amendment. His thoughts on the Second Amendment is, as long as you don't support me, you don't have that right. And now that they're realizing that, more people than just MAGA sycophants have guns, it's like he's the guy, despite how they said Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, they're just the last few Democratic presidents, how they were coming for your guns. And now that there is a president who's, by the way, attacking Americans in the streets and oddly coming for their guns, there's not much to say about that. It's almost like they never had that principle either, or they thought that no one else had any guns but them. It seems like a stupid thing to think, but then again, we're talking about MAGA supporters here, so it all makes sense. After Donald Trump jumped on his plane and flew around the country, he ended up in Iowa at this restaurant. I'm showing you guys how he walked in and the reception that he received for a reason. Here, this is how they greeted him when he got to this restaurant in Iowa, full of sycophants.
Welcome to Iowa!
Count of three, we're all going to say Iowa. We're all going to say Iowa. Come in real quick. So,
Whatever. Pictures being taken, kissing babies. He's on the campaign trail. He's at a restaurant in Iowa. And I feel like the reason he went to this particular restaurant in Iowa and probably made sure that everyone in that restaurant in Iowa was going to be on board with him is so that he can maybe pitch that whole thing about how he's against the Second Amendment now. I mean, for only people who disagree with him politically, is so that he could lean on all of those minions in that place.
The assessment from some of your own officials that Alex Preddy is a domestic terrorist or an assassin.
Well, I haven't heard that, but certainly he shouldn't have been carrying a gun. But hey, look, bottom line, everybody in this room, we view that as a very unfortunate incident. Okay, right. Everyone, right. Unless right. you're a stupid person. Very, very unfortunate incident. I don't like that he had a gun. I don't like that he had 2 fully loaded magazines. That's a lot of bad stuff. And despite that, I say that's a very unfortunate.
The assessment from some of your.
Do you see how this works? I wanted to make sure I showed you guys those 2 different moments, the 2 different times that Donald Trump said very similar things about how the guy shouldn't have a gun. He shouldn't have a gun because in the United States of America, according to MAGA Republican Party, you shouldn't have a legally owned firearm. You shouldn't have one. You shouldn't. And then I feel like the next step just might be, now that we've told you shouldn't have one, let's go ahead and get rid of that for you. Because I don't think you should have one. I'm afraid of being shot. But as he does it, he turned to his crowd that he cultivated there to try and support his BS and normalize it by saying, I think everyone here would agree with me. You can't have a gun, right? You can't have a gun, right? It's normalizing this drumbeat for taking away only which people's guns. Or in those moments when then they continue to attack American citizens and American citizens respond the way that they've always been brainwashed into responding by shooting, then they'll say, man, look at these radical libs trying to take over the country and run up against this president who's just trying to shoot their friends and family in the streets. That's all that's happening. I asked this question yesterday and apparently it was answered. The NRA unequivocally believes that all law-abiding citizens have a right to keep and bear arms anywhere that they have a legal right to be. Wow. How soon before the NRA is on like the shit list for MAGA Republicans? Can you believe the NRA sold out? The NRA has gone woke. They're woke now because these guys have no idea what woke is, have no idea what they apparently said they have principles and beliefs in. But the NRA wasn't even done. They said this as well in response to this guy, Bill Asali. I'll tell you why in a second, but this is what they said to him. This sentiment from the first assistant U.S. attorney for the Central District of California is dangerous and it's wrong. Responsible public voices should be awaiting a full investigation, not making generalizations and demonizing law-abiding citizens. This is what Bill Asali, who's the first assistant U.S. attorney for the Central District of California, had to say, and the reasons why he somehow drew that response from the NRA, because he saw this picture that the Homeland Security put up after they murdered Alex Preddy, and he said, if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there's a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. Don't do it. So the NRA had an issue with that. That's what they were responding to. It's weird. It spread even further. I was surprised by all this until I read the back end of this message also from the Gun Owners of America, very similar group to, like, say, the NRA. They responded also to Bill Asali. We're saddened by the loss of life in Minneapolis, Minnesota earlier today during a federal law enforcement operation. Because details remain limited and facts are still emerging, it's essential that the Justice Department conduct this complete, transparent, and prompt investigation so the public can fully understand what occurred and maintain confidence in the rule of law. Sounds like they're against this guy. Furthermore, we condemn the untoward comments of Mr. Bill Asali. Federal agents are not highly likely to be legally justified in shooting concealed carry licensees who approach while lawfully carrying a firearm. The Second Amendment protects Americans' rights to bear arms while protesting, a right that the federal government must not infringe upon. Man, the Gun Owners of America are standing with these radical lefties in their gun rights. One more, here's the last part though. Finally, from the Gun Owners of America, the left must stop antagonizing ICE and CBP agents who are taking criminals off the streets and play a crucial role in protecting communities and upholding the rule of law. It's weird. It's almost like the way Tom Tillis, what's her name now? All these folks that are retiring. I've never blanked on her name. Oh my God, I can't believe she's already gone. But the way that all these Republicans who are now leaving and have something finally to say about Donald Trump and the way that they're running this whole fascist regime, now they have to make sure that they even it all out. Because at the same time, protesters shouldn't be protesting, even though they get to have their guns. Which one is it, Gun Owners of America? Which one is it? It's almost like you shouldn't even listen to the folks who say they're going to stand by their principles of allowing people to still have their rights in the country where Donald Trump decides who has which rights and at what point they get taken away. So in case you were about to, like give the Gun Owners of America a pat on the back, don't do it. I'm still holding my breath on the NRA because really, who knows? Once Donald Trump implements his next step of taking away people's guns, I wonder what the NRA might say. Whenever a little bit of pushback happens and he steamrolls anyway, many times they fold. Maybe I'm just too pessimistic, or maybe I paid attention to this for way too long and I know how this works. Okay. Oh, by the way, you're right. I see Squirrel Dragon 59 says, I'd seen this right before we came on, but I didn't get much of a confirmation. I just saw it get posted somewhere. How they discovered that Alex Pretty's body also had a broken rib, if not maybe multiple. And that would happen from being assaulted. I don't think he showed up to the protest with a broken rib. I feel like they probably broke his rib. Or as Stephen Miller would probably say, he broke his own rib. Or Donald Trump would also say that too. You know, he broke his own rib to make everyone feel bad for him. And then after that, he shot himself 10 times. I see you guys trying to Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's who it is. Jeez, I don't understand why my brain isn't working today. Maybe it was all the dog poop and vomit that I picked up all night and into the morning. Okay. See you guys. I appreciate you being here. I went over by 15 minutes. Code, hang out with John. Maybe he'll even out everyone's emotions. I got to get to doing all this editing. These stories will be up later. If you haven't liked the stream yet, please do. It's good times over here. We do it every day. We'll be back tomorrow at noon to talk to you guys then. Appreciate you. I love you. Have a happy Wednesday. We'll see you later. See you, Mom.